Hello, my name is Simon Green, I work for Juniper Networks. So in this short video we're going to deploy a CloudFormation stack. It's a OneClick deployer. It's going to run up an OpenShift deployment in a VPC, some masters, some infra nodes, some worker nodes. It's going to deploy Red Hat OpenShift inside those VPCs. And then it's going to integrate Contrail as a CNI. That's Contrail SDN as a CNI into OpenShift, and then we'll fire up an application. So as usual, you don't have to take notes. I'll give you links and documents at the end in a QR code. So our target architecture is to bring up a Contrail command instance, which we'll use for management access. An OpenShift infra, this is where we'll put the infra services for OpenShift plus the Contrail SDN controller. OpenShift master, and then a worker node. So this stack does have an option for HA, which is going to be available in about 3 weeks time. So for now, keep the HA off, deploy it, have a play, come back the same stack in a few weeks. You'll be able to click the button and it will deploy exactly the same, but in a full HA configuration across 3 AZs. So as usual, I'll provide a link to deploy the stack. I'm already logged into my account. And then for parameters, where you can change anything, but the parameters you're really going to need are in the wiki. So let's take a look. So it says set the registry. This is the container registry, so this is to access Juniper and then pull the images for the Dockers. And then set your Red Hat account, your Red Hat password, your subscription ID, and then we recommend that you change the user location. So this is the subnet that gets put into the security group for access to the cluster. You can obviously change it after it's up. So if you put nothing at all, we're going to allow the whole internet to access this elastic IP here and come into the cluster. The rest of the cluster is locked down, so nothing to worry about. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video whilst I put in my login passwords. You'll need your own. Let's show you the Red Hat down the bottom. It's these three. And then the two Juniper passwords is this one and this one. And then I'm going to click next and resume the video. Okay, so before we proceed, just to let you know, the container registry username and password, this is the login and password to access Juniper's Contrail Docker images on internet. So you're going to get this through your account or through Juniper. And for Red Hat, obviously assuming that you have a Red Hat account, the subscription pool ID will be a pool that has access to OpenShift 3.11. It's 3.11 that this stack's deploying and integrating into. So I've clicked next. I tend to set my stacks to say don't delete on failure the first couple of times, because then it's nice to be able to see what went wrong rather than it just deletes everything. It's a single stack, so very simple. Click create. Okay, so create's in progress. The stack itself is only going to take a few minutes to run and to create the infrastructure that I showed you. And then it's going to run an Ansible inside to deploy OpenShift and an Ansible to deploy and integrate Contrail SDN as a CNI into it. In total, you're probably looking at about 45 minutes, something like that, before it's finished. Okay, so our stack's finished. We've given it a lot longer than the 45 minutes it takes for the Ansible deployer because I was busy elsewhere. But once it's finished, we really just need to follow the wiki. But before we do that, let me just show you what I mentioned earlier about getting access to the log files. Consider it an optional step, but if you do want to see how it deployed, or if something went wrong, you never know, then this is the place to look. So we need to get into the infra node. This is where we run the Ansible deployer from. And we're going to access it via the Contrail command instance. So the command instance at the minute is the only instance of a public IP. So it's the one we use for access. And it's all ready to go. It's configured with NAT. If we come in on that port, it will forward the traffic to the infra node for us. Okay, so let's connect. We're in the infra node. And usually you would just tail var log bootstrap.log. Everything's going to go there. Now our stack's finished, so let me just show you the end of the stack so you know what you're looking for. So from a few screens up, you can see it's running the Ansible. And the final message you get is all nodes successful, and it tells you how long the steps took, and you're done. So at this point we're simply going to follow the wiki. So once the deployment's completed, set up the admin password. So this is the password for the GUI. SSH to the master, see the stack output. So again, back to the output, and you can see here the master node again through the public IP is port 1140. So let's connect to the master. Sudo bash we're simply going to copy paste the steps. So I'm setting the default password to Contrail 123. You can set it to anything you like. This guy's going to prompt you, you just put in the same password, in my case Contrail 123. Okay, so let's continue following the wiki. So to access the Contrail UI over internet, use the link in the outputs. The default login is admin Contrail 123, that's unless you've changed it. So let's look, and remember we're not in HA, so it's just a single host. That's the URL for the Contrail UI. I'll use Chrome because it's easier on the certificates. Let's paste it in, and admin Contrail 123. So as you can see, not bad. So vrouter down is probably just a port or something like that, so don't panic. I believe that in OpenShift it always leaves a port that eventually gets cleared up. If you look at alarms, yeah, interface down. So it's just telling you that there's a pod down. So good to go. So what's next in that wiki? So to access the OpenShift UI over the internet, use the link provided in the stack. As we use private host names in the stack, so I'm not hooking into Route 53 because a lot of my customers use external DNS. So I'm actually using the AWS VPC names. So what will happen is when you connect to the GUI, it'll redirect you to these sort of AWS names, and of course your laptop isn't going to be able to resolve those. So you could set them up for real in DNS, but a quick and easy hack is just to grab all the names. This is a list of all the names that I know that it's going to use. I even got some applications down the bottom there, and just point them to Contrail Command's public IP. So in my case, the public IP, well, it's used all over the place. This is the public IP, the 52, 58, 54, 27. If you want to see it for real, just to be complete, we'll go to the instances, we'll take a look. There's the Contrail Command instance, and you see there's the IP there, the same one of course. It's the only public IP we're using at the minute. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how I change the IP. So it's this block here that I'm showing in the wiki. This is all of the host names that AWS is using in the VPC, and there's some names down here for things like test applications that I deploy. If this was a real DNS server being, you know, if you were resolving it in a real DNS, you would just wildcard these and say anything star.this domain, just point it to the infra nodes. But what I'm doing here is I can't wildcard because it's etc hosts, and I'm just pointing it through Contrail Command for now, and I'll forward it on. I'll forward on anything going to HTTP or HTTPS, the infra nodes. Okay, so that's changing the last address that I used. Here's my current public address. There you go. So let's look at the CloudFormation output. There's the OpenShift UI. Back to Chrome. So it's going to kick you into a login a couple of times. When it first comes up, OpenShift always seems to do this, but afterwards it's fine. Admin Contrail 123, because that's what we set. There you go, you see what I mean? So here we go, just going again. It just seems to be after the platform initially comes up. So okay, we've got Contrail up, we've got OpenShift up. Let's deploy a test app. So I'm going to go to the default domain in Kubernetes. I'm going to go to the catalog. I'm going to deploy, let's do a Django Postgres. And for this particular app, you just need to set a password. Contrail 123. Create. Close. So if you go to the overview, you'll see it's creating an application. And then after a while, it's going to give it a name. So it's the application name followed by this domain. Now remember, this domain is specified in the stack. Let me show you that. Stack parameters. Yeah. Right there. So you can change it. So we'll let the app deploy. This app, I think, takes 1 or 2 minutes. Some of the apps use HTTP, some of them use HTTPS. All of these catalog applications get routed in via what's called the router in OpenShift. So in this case, the router sits in overlay in Contrail, and Contrail uses Fabric in order to reach it. So any ingress traffic that hits an infra node is going to find these applications. You can see Postgres, its database backends coming up. And there you go, the application is deployed. So let's access the link. Remember, this application is being exposed through the router, which is an infra service. So the router's it's an OpenShift thing, and it's a way to reach its applications. It's something similar to Kubernetes ingress. You can still use ingress, but this is how OpenShift does it. It's pretty simple. And there's our application. Okay, just to wrap up. So if you look at the wiki, remember I'm going to give you a QR code for this, so you'll get the wiki. Don't worry about taking notes. If you keep scrolling down, of course I even walk you through the application. It's just loading the graphic. If you keep going down and down and down, here there's a second stack for brownfield. So let me explain. A lot of our customers have already built infrastructure. They don't want me to deploy the subnets, the routers, the NAT gateways. They just want me to deploy OpenShift, Contrail SDN as a CNI integrated. So that's exactly what this stack will do. It's going to ask you a lot more questions. And in fact, you can see the list there, and predictably the sort of questions it's going to ask you is, what VPC do you want me to put the masters in? What VPC do you want the workers in? What subnets do you want me to use? You know, what's my private IP? What's my public IP? Things like that. And that's because it's sitting into an existing infrastructure. But you're welcome to try that one too. It'll pretty much deploy straight into the infrastructure that this one's already set up. So then you can have Contrail integrated clusters running at the same time. That's the end of the video, and thanks again.